Times have we lost our zest in life? We're getting older, but are we really getting older? Or are we getting better? We lose the zest because we feel that sometimes we don't have that energy. We don't have that thing that sparks us because maybe something's missing. Hello and welcome to Let's Get Real today. I will be joining you today on Let's Get Real. My name is Glenda Kroll, for those who don't know me, with my sidekick, my greatest woman here, Nicole Harvick, my wonderful woman who she is here. We're coming to you today, Ben. We're going to be coming on and doing our own thing today on a one-on-one, because I want you to all think that life is happening for you, not is happening against you. Nicole, how are you doing today?
You know what? I'm doing really well. I'm blown away by the fact that we're almost into December, meaning we're going to be starting 2024 fairly soon. That's one of the things I don't know that I want to look back on, because I feel like I didn't accomplish enough this year, which maybe I'm being hard on myself, but it's like, there's this, well, I should have done this or I should have done that. So I'm trying to weed that out and just go with my accomplishments, which of course, being on Let's Get Real for over a year, that is huge. That is huge. I'm so proud of us.
And so am I. So let's talk about today. We're going to really get down to be real on here, because, we're going to be talking about the ways. We're going to hit on 5 ways that we can manage and help manage the second half of our life, with, you and I are both in at this point.
Yeah. This is the 4th quarter.
But here's the thing, what we got to realize, we got to realize that it starts with, first of all, before we even get into our first 5 segments of how we can really manage this next part of life, is it's got to start really first from, we got to stop beating ourselves up. You just did it. Just as we started, you said, I didn't get as much accomplished. Well, you know what? We got to start learning that what we don't do in our lives is we don't pat ourselves enough on the back. Now, I'm not telling about that you get, that you become inflated in yourself and your ego becomes driven and all of that. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to the fact that we need to give ourselves a break. This has been a hard year. Interest rates have gone up, food, everything that you can touch has risen to more extents than ever before in our life. And on top of that, because we have hit that, we've also had all sorts of things that has gone on all over the world. So we're not really looking in the same phases as the world as it is now. So if we can just stop everybody at this point in time and just look at where you are, let's start being real within ourselves. Maybe there's days that you haven't shown up for yourself. We've all been there. We've all had that. We've all had knockdowns. So instead of saying, well, I haven't done what I was supposed to, how about looking at, and I do this through the coaching of, I want you to look back even into the past year on some of the things that you've managed to get out of, or that you've made it through, that you looked at and thought to yourself, how am I ever going to make it through this? And if we can just be really real with ourselves, to be grateful that we've made it through some challenging time. And I'm sure everybody that I could think of in this world right now has made it through some really challenging times. And this is one of them that we're living through. So if we can start with that, then it's really is the beginning of how we can accomplish anything in our lives by looking what we've gone through. And too many times we look at ourselves, and you would think by this point in time in life, we've lived through most of the life, or we lived through a good sector of life as it is already, and we've made it through so much. But why do we always forget what we've done, the accomplishments we've made?
And Glenda, I think that a lot of that has to do with the conditioning of society. I really do. We start these kids out when they're 5 years old, going to kindergarten, and as I watched my kids go through school, it had changed completely from when I was in school, and I watched them not just learn, but learn to test. And that was very disheartening to me, that a school district needs to raise these test scores based on someone else's idea of education. And so there's a lot of conditioning that goes in, that who you are, what you do, and this A to F system. If you're conditioned to think C is average, well, guess what? That word is going to lodge in your subconscious, and your whole life. You might go through life just thinking you're average, and we're not. We're so above average, because in looking back, I didn't like school, so I would have been below average. I truly would have, because
I joined the club.
Okay. And I think about it, but I didn't want to learn that stuff they were teaching me. I didn't want to know that. I had very different interests. Even, I loved to read in school, hated math. I've never been that great at it. I've always had a computer, even in real estate. I mean, I could figure out your payment, but it was really me just using my fingers punching in numbers. The computer figured it out for me. But, when you think about it, what if I was that person that didn't understand that I had so much future, so much promise, so many abilities to do this, that, or the other? What if I would have gone through my life thinking, well, I can't do that because I'm below average? That's what they said.
And that's what a lot of people think. And that's one of the things that we need to look at with ourselves, because, we look at our failures or our things that have fallen in our life as failures. I don't mean as failures. And instead of looking at it and realizing that if we look back at the things that we've experienced, and we find those things that we've experienced, that we've made it through, even if you had a relationship that didn't work out, well, how about the good times that happened in there? How about the things that you accomplished through that relationship? There's so many things that you have learned through. And how about the fact that maybe you learned that there was a certain thing in that relationship that might have failed, but once you learn what fails, and what not to look for, or the things that that maybe that's the type of person that's going to trigger you, and maybe trigger you to the point where the relationship won't work. So we have to learn that we can sit back and look at our past, because everything in our past, whether it's school that you didn't do well in, I didn't do well at school, but here's the thing. When I started doing a private course to be doing a paralegal, I was amazed. I did not do well in school, but when I was starting to listening to legal terminologies and reading documents, I was excelling like I've never excelled in my life. I didn't realize that. You see, when we find something that we like, that we're good at, or something just tweaks in us, that's where we find our first thing about us. And while we're talking about that, let's go into our first ways of moving in the second half of your life. So if any of you are watching and you're at a point where maybe you're a little bored in your job, bored in your life, maybe your kids are all off, and you're an empty nester now, and you're sitting there wondering, what am I going to do with myself? What can I do now? Maybe you're in a job where you just hate it. It's like thinking to yourself, I wish it's Friday already, or it's the first part of the day and you're already wishing for the day to end. Well, really, is that a way to be living your life? So let's start with ways of finding the things that make you sparkle, the things that you enjoy to do. And one of the incredible, wonderful things is starting to find out things that get you going. And one of the really great ways is to start looking at hobbies. Pursue things that, people don't realize that sometimes you can take a hobby and you can actually turn it into a business. But instead of that, it's really what we have to do is find times that we flourish, the times that make us happiest. Because we need to add that even in. Working all the time is not the greatest thing for you, anyways. And the greatest way of learning is to finding something that you enjoy so you can lose track of time and maybe a little bit. You know, Finding times like you've said to me many a times, Nicole, that you're an avid reader. So
Yes.
sitting down with, what type of books do you enjoy?
As a matter of fact, I just hopped on Amazon literally right before I came on here, and there were two books that I'm very much into quantum healing. I'm very much into meditation and manifestation. And there's a book called Theta Healing. And theta healing is when you're delving into your subconscious. And a lot of people don't know that 90% of what we do are based from our subconscious mind, and that could be things we learned when we were 2 years old or when our mother was pregnant with us. So one of the things I always tell people is you're running old stories a lot of the time. And so I ordered something that's going to make my little arsenal even more powerful.
Yeah,
And then I ordered something called the Silva method. And I have been reading about this gentleman, I think from the 50s or 60s.
yeah, I
And
know.
he had a method, and they finally have written about it. So those were the two books I just ordered probably a half an hour before I came on here. And for me, it's like the people I deal with, that I work with, that I coach, we're all kind of, because of what I do, we're all of the same, mindset. And so that is going to help me to help them. And if you would have told me, 10 years ago that I would be doing this, I would have been like, no, I love it. I read about it, but I can't do it. I would have said, no, I can't do this. And I've just come to a point in my life where I have to do what I love. And if there are naysayers, that's fine.
Yeah,
I've noticed that when you do what you love, your vibration raises
yeah.
up, 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 up. And you will find that people will go out of your life, but your new tribe comes in very organically, very kindly. And they come in because we're all vibrating at the same vibration. We all have the same mindset. We all are very interested in health and holistic health and keeping our bodies, up to date and running smoothly. So yeah, that's really interesting that you bring that up, because those are on the way.
So
So
the other thing about pursuing a hobby, and just like you're saying of reading, what happens is nowadays what I'm finding, especially as I post things and I speak to people and ask them what type of books they like, there's a lot of people that don't read. And it's enormous, actually, the amount of people that don't read. But here's the thing: is the more you read, the more you actually build yourself up mentally, your skills of understanding, your skills of even writing. Now I know, there's now we're in another world of AI, and I do know because I work at it, I actually teach it, and for people just like I have shared with you, our side of Ruby, who does basically everything. But when you become stronger in your reading skills, then you also become stronger by knowing what you need to add in even to AI. So it becomes your own. So it doesn't mean that you're losing anything, you're actually gaining. But the whole idea is of a hobby is really to start to building you, building things that bring you happiness. It starts making you think in a different limelight. It's something that, like, just like you said, Nicole, you start changing your vibrations, right? When you're happy, everybody can see it. When you're miserable, most people can see it too, but most people stay away from you.
yes,
So
Yeah,
it's really important. And as I just said, you can also, and people are interested, the whole idea is you're more than welcome to reach out to Nicole and I through this. And we believe this because that's what we're here for as well, is you can actually develop a business from your hobbies. Many people have. And nowadays, especially with everything that's out there, it's really quite easy to do. And, so start thinking outside of the box. So it's really an important thing. Now we're talking about the second half, but here's the thing. This should start anytime. When you're young, start going out. If you have kids, start introducing them. Take them to a museum, taking them to an art gallery, take them to listen to a symphony, take them to experience hockey, baseball, anything and everything. Because the more you experience, the more you get to see whether you like something or you don't. And hobbies should be something that should be part of your life all the time. But many people don't have hobbies because through the years, especially moms, you get to the part where you lose a lot of yourself because you're kids. Start finding,
absolutely. Yeah.
right? So start getting out there and trying to do things that you love. And again, go out and experience things. Go out and try it. Because
Exactly. And Glenda, you don't have to stop your life and just be in a house with your kids. Both my girls were on planes before they were even 6 months old. And they had their little wings, a child needs to experience as much as they can. You don't want them in a house. You want them out. You want them looking around. You want them in nature. You want them do you like to dance, or do you like to ride bikes? What do you like? And you have to go through just the normal, well, I didn't like that too much. Okay, you tried it. Maybe it'll come back to you, maybe it won't. And that's what I did with both my girls, and my youngest, her sister is a dancer and has took lessons for over 20 years, and she wanted to emulate her sister. And so I said, okay, we'll put you in some dance classes and some tumbling. And she did it for about maybe a year. And she's like, Mom, I really want to play sports. I said, okay, let's figure out what you want to do. Well, she wanted to do all of them. And you know what? She did. She played basketball. She played football. She played t-ball and ended up being an amazing volleyball player. But I let her experience everything. I didn't say, okay, you've got to try this and, stick with it. It's like, what do you resonate with? What is in your heart? And that's what both mine did. One's heart was a dancer, one's heart was an athlete.
I love it. And that's really important. So, we got to realize that through the second part of life, we always have challenges. Part of life is challenges. And here, like what I want to remind you of, even though that you have challenges, the whole idea, and we all go through things, but it's how we go through it and how we perceive them. So, part of having to perceive through these problems is what we're going to be talking about, is how we get through them. And some of the easiest ways is learning to adjust ourselves in certain ways. So let's talk about, and this is for me, this is number one on my poll of no matter what I do, that the number first thing in life for me is a health priority.
Yes.
So, we can all go through, and many people go through that they don't have time. They don't have time to exercise. They don't have time to eat well. So it's really easy. We live in a world of fast food, fast everything, right? Everything has to be instamatic, and, it's supposed to have already happened. And, I think if there was a pill that we could take that would make our bellies feel full, then we would do that
We
too.
would.
It's just the way we
Agreed.
do. But don't wait until something happens. Too often you hear, and I know this because I lived with a spouse that was like this, and even when it happened, he couldn't deal with it. Is don't wait for the situation to hit you. Don't wait for the heart attack to happen. the whole thing is, if you start working yourself, and we're not talking masses amount of things that we need to do for ourselves. I'm talking taking a walk every day for 15, 20 minutes. I'm talking about stretching every morning. I'm talking about, it's not always of what we're eating is the health thing. It's also what you're watching on TV, what you're consuming through Instagram and Facebook. I'm talking about all this is your diet. So we need to start becoming more aware of what we're doing with our time. Are we doing things to make ourselves happier? Are we doing things that we build ourselves to make ourselves healthier? And I'll tell you a story that, it was last year or it's a year and a half now, when I had my fall, and I had broken my pelvis bone and also my sacrum. And the doctor had told me that I, at that point, would probably need an operation, and it would take me some time to get back on my feet, if at all. And I didn't walk out. I walked out in crutches, or I hopped out at that point, and said, no, I'm not going to need anything. I'm going to get myself better. I'm going to be fine, because of the mindset. But here's the thing. It was less than 7 months that I was back again and walking without crutches and without a cane. And as I walked into the doctor's office to update, he was shocked. He says, most women at this age, I'm surprised that you wouldn't have. And it was like, no, like, here's the thing. I was already in shape before this accident happened. When your body is already strong and something happens, your body can bounce back a lot easier.
Right.
So the whole idea, and the reason I tell you the story, is it's because I want you to think in another way. If heart attacks can happen with healthy people, but if your body's in good shape before it happens, and as we get older, there's things that are going to start happening. And if your body is in good shape, your body is strong enough to deal with this before something happens. So imagine if you've already had that strength in your body, and then something happens. Your body has that energy, your mind. You see, it's when we talk about health, it's also your mental health. Because
Absolutely.
and right, and this is something, in the last we're still dealing with COVID, because COVID did a lot of damage, and there's a lot of people mentally that are still been restricted by COVID. Never mind the aftermaths of what COVID, some of the people that had, and I know somebody became a diabetic because of COVID, what it did to their body. But here's the thing, we got to keep ourselves mentally and physically in tune. Another reason why people should be continuously reading and doing things like that, and also keeping yourself happy by doing something you love as a sidekick, whether it's a business or whether it's just a hobby, because it keeps you mentally in tune.
Yes. And it keeps you happy. It keeps your endorphins up. Something that you love and it doesn't have to be complex. It can be simple. It can be just a short walk. It can be walking your dog. For me, I love to thrift. That makes me happy to do that every couple weeks, just to go out there. I'm terrible because I get rid of stuff at my house and bring something home. My kids are like, Mom, that's not the point. I know. But, it can be something like that. And you don't have to be at a gym every single day.
No. And you know what? I gave up the gym, or I gave up the gym when I entered into COVID. And between my place, I have a gym downstairs in my building, but during the days, it's just as easy. In the morning, I started wall Pilates. So, as long as you got a wall in your place, you can do it. Like, this is, it's just thinking of it, yoga, I do it. I have a mat. I can, go onto YouTube and Google in wall Pilates, yoga, whatever. You can do a full workout, and you don't
Exactly.
need anything, right? As long as you got a pair of shoes or a pair of boots, because it's also snowing here now, then you can go for a walk. dress appropriately, but move your body and moves your mind, right? So we got to
Yes.
think of all these ways of moving ourselves and carrying ourselves so that we can set ourselves up for a win in the second part of our lives. Instead of the second part of our lives where you're going to be going and running to doctors and spending money on meds of things because you didn't look after yourself in the first place. And here's another thing that I'm going to tell you. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, well, it's too late. I haven't
Mm-mm.
done anything. I haven't been exercising. I'm just going to forget about it. Well, I'm going to tell you something right now. You're wrong. You can start all over again. But let's be careful about how we do that. Instead of jumping into something, start it slowly. I know you probably could do 20 hours of walking. Slow it down to a half an hour. Start with little bits, little bites. Because what happens is if you start doing an exercise program and you do too much, and then you get so sore the next day, or usually the second and third day, you can't get out of bed, you're not going to continue on.
Right. You're going to talk yourself out of it.
So let's start to learn what we can do to move ourselves forward and doing little things, same as like us again, finding a hobby. Start with tasting it, doing going out, doing maybe cooking that you haven't tried doing if you haven't been cooking or it doesn't matter. All I'm saying, the idea is finding things to do that make you happy. Health is a priority. It's so easy now. And if any people want to know, well, you're thinking, what do I know what to cook? I can't even think of the cook. Well, I can introduce you to an AI platform that we use that actually will spit out a whole, right? It will spit out a whole week's worth of cooking recipes would and the cheapest place in your area to buy it of the groceries.
It's
And
amazing, Glenda.
you
It
can break
is.
down
Yeah.
your calories, right? So there's so much and so many things out there.
Yes. And I just did that today. I had an article to write for vegan and vegetarian Christmas. What is there a way to? I'm telling you, it was like this. I'm like, my gosh, I didn't even know there was that much out there. And now I want to partake in that because I got, very excited and I did mocktails. I wanted because I don't drink anymore. I'm like mocktails. I'm like, there's pomegranate and cranberry juice. And I'm like, all these things are so healthy for you. So when you're sitting down with that holiday drink with all your antioxidants and your vitamin C, you're really doing yourself a favor. Your poor liver isn't going to be getting rid of anything because it's going to absorb and keep you healthier.
So, again, all of these things are at your fingertips. But the whole thing is you've got to start exploring. And that's what we're here to do. So, here's the other part of your second part. It's really important to start connecting it with others. How do you know who your people are if you're not getting out and connecting out? And one of the things that's happening right now in our world, or you would think the way we live that, this wouldn't be then one of the most unfortunate things that is happening right now is the fact that more and more people are feeling isolated and lonely more than ever before. And it's really saddens me to know that there are so many people out there that are so lonely because everything looks, when you go on social media, which is happening right now, everybody's looking and they're only showing you, it could be that moment, that pause and things that everything looks wonderful. But for the most part, maybe they are stuck in, little things like this. So little avenues. There's a thing called Meetup. If you go online onto Google, you can go on to Meetup and you can Google anything that you want to know, whether it's learning to invest in real estate, whether it's cooking, whether it's just going out to eat. There's groups of anything and everything that you could possibly imagine. And there through those, a lot of people go by themselves. I know when I first started out, when I had to start my life over again after my relationship, it was like You know what? There were certain things that I wanted. I started going into some of these things and I went by myself. And it didn't feel scary because so many other people go by themselves. So it's not a terrible thing, but it's amazing how many people and things you can open yourself up to. There's also so many other types of groups. So if you go onto Facebook, you'll find all sorts of other type of groups, and some are virtually, and some are in your own area where you can meet up with people.
Yeah.
Start learning to reach out.
And there's a big fear of technology also. And I remember my mom when she was older saying, I don't want to learn that. I can't learn that. But you can. And it when you see someone clicking here, there, and everywhere, that might look a little daunting. But really, I even with the new things I'm learning, it's keeping my brain alive. I'm very interested, but we can learn. We can learn at this age, Glenda. You and I have both been learning every single day.
Every single day. It never stops. But here's the thing: if you don't know, you got to try things. And you can't be scared to try things, especially like on a computer, that because there's nothing that you can't do anything that's going to be that detrimental. So trying new things, putting yourself out there, it's really important even to go out there with one or two people to get yourself moving out and be exposed to more people. This also saves you mentally, physically. It's like your head. If you don't connect up with people, it's one of the biggest things to that when people hit depression. It's because they're living too much by themselves. So get out, start doing something for yourself. Which also brings into another area that I were looking at, that people need to look at in life, is volunteering. You know, it's such an important area in life. And I know the young people start early now a days, because in school, I know in Canada and I think in the US as well, is you have to have so many what they call community hours, which means you have to give some things of yourself. And I love this. And I wish this should be part of a thing in school, that you have to do it every year. In some schools, they have to do it. You have to have a certain amount of community hours for the whole time being. But all about giving is actually all about teaching. And here's why I say this. When you give, you learn. You learn that when you give of yourself, you actually get back. And you don't give for that reason. It's just a natural thing. It also brings your heart and makes your heart feel good, right? So you go out and you give of your time, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a group of people, young kids at a school. It doesn't matter where or how you volunteer, but it comes back to you by making you feel good because you've made somebody else feel good. It's just a natural thing. And really what it does is it builds us inside. You start learning of things that you enjoy. Maybe you didn't even think of it, but you could have gone into another field. Maybe there's some part of things that you learn from somewhere else, where you've helped somebody else. This can lead to a lot of different things. It also will help you build some skills. So we have to learn that no matter how old you are, you're still always going to learn. That's the whole wonderful thing about it all. It's always constantly building yourself to learn. Because if you stop learning, you stop growing. And if you stop growing, well, here's the other thing. What are your other options? If you're stopping to grow and you're stopping to learn, you're stopping to live. That's not what life was meant for. So as we give and we volunteer, we start building our own selves up. And it's really important because we learn, like I said, you also learn about yourself. And so many times we hit this point in life and we really don't know who we are anymore. Have you ever felt the time when you get to this point and you start to doubt yourself? You doubt yourself because you haven't done all the things, so you're scared. We get to the point where we have that self-doubt. We have to scared because we've been living in our little of bundles of bubbles, and we won't move out of them because we do the same thing day in, day out. What if we go out and we try something else? Here at a place which can create another area. You build friends, you build new skill, new knowledge.
But you build confidence as well. And
Bingo.
that's really important, is the fact that you might be a little hesitant when you first volunteer, or you're not sure if you can do it. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, that was good. That was fun. I liked that. And all of a sudden, here we go with the vibration again. But your self-confidence builds up. And that's really important, especially, in this last half, to feel like we are still worthy.
And that's so important that you just said that. Because part of it, we feel sometimes in our lives that we're not worthy enough. And because it's all about what's in our head. So we got to get out of our heads and just get into doing. And doing is really one of the most important things in life, right? How many people have you heard that they're going to be doing? They're going to get into that. They're thinking about it. Well, we're at the end of the year, folks. Have you done any of the things? And I would love people to comment on our sections below. Have you done everything, or have you done anything of what you've been thinking of doing? Because so often we keep on sitting in that pattern where we're thinking, we're going to be doing, we're going to try to do it. Let's get off that whole cord, that circle, the hamster wheel, and get on to doing it. Even if it's messy, it doesn't matter. We're not here to judge. We got to stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking. How often do we not do things because we're worried about everybody else? Well, news alert.
No one's paying attention to you. Yep. That's the funny part, is everyone is so worried. Well, what'll they say? What'll they think of me? And it's like, the minute you're out of their sight, they're not thinking about you. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. And you're doing yourself a disservice by worrying about it. How does it make you feel? You're the one doing it. You're the important one at that moment.
And that's really is important to realize of that. Also, one of the next points is be open to a second career. So many times we're thinking, well, I can't wait till I retire. I heard that all through the years of people always living till retirement. Well, did you know that the stats are that people that retire are actually the people who actually die the fastest? Because you stop working, the mind is not using as much, you don't have that same drive. It's something about it. Even if you're you're retired, find a side hustle, because that extra little bit, it can give you, even bringing in a few extra dollars is really a really good point. But the other thing is, it keeps you motivated, it keeps you connecting up with others, it keeps you going out of your comfort zone, say. So getting into the habit of thinking to yourself that nothing is over, no age is too old. More people have become more successful. Colonel Sanders didn't actually end up becoming, famous until he was in his 60s, when he got it acknowledged for his chicken. Like at 60 or 65 years old, Colonel Sanders came to being. Now,
and he had a lot of failures before that.
Huge amount.
Kept at it.
So be open to trying. And when we don't make it through, hey, that's just a learn. Stop worrying about what doesn't happen and just keep trying, because something will happen. That's the whole key to it all. And let's talk about, as our timing is going off, let's look at one thing. too many times that dollar that we earn is not quite making it through to the end of the month. People live usually going through, how many paychecks they have per month or whatever. The one great thing about learning is we don't have the same type of needs we did when we were younger. Our world has also changed. People don't get dressed to the same level that they used to do. And if you look after yourself and you can keep your weight balanced in a certain level, you don't need to be coming and buying all the clothes that you need. Isn't it a little bit easier if we can live a little bit more simply by pulling back a little bit and really think about it? Because instead of feeling the stress, because a lot of people tend to, they spend it and then they think about it afterwards of, why did I buy this? I shouldn't have done this. I can't really afford this. So many times I've heard people say, well, I can't really afford it, but I'll buy it anyways. Well, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. Don't buy things if it's going to be another little ornament that's going to be sitting on your coffee table. All it is something else to be dusting. It's the simpler we can live, the happier we can live. Build yourself with memories and experiences rather than things. And I learned that many years ago when I went through a very trying time in my life where, I had so many things. And it was at that point when I was leaving a relationship and and all I kept looking at all these things that I ended up throwing in the garbage, believe it or not, because it wasn't those things. What was it all about in life? Well, life is about relationships, about building those times where you can be with those people that matter to you. It doesn't matter on how many extra pairs of shoes you can buy, how many more dresses you can have in your cupboard, because we end up wearing the same things most of the time anyways. Most people,
Absolutely.
right? Most people do not change their clothes. You have, a set of certain amounts of clothes that you tend to wear on and on, over and over again. And it's more like 80% of your clothes that you don't wear, and there's 20% of what you do wear. So think about it. Having less things and putting more time into what you can enjoy by that relationship, by that calling up somebody on a telephone and letting them know that you're thinking of them. That's what really matters. Let's build the next part of our lives with learning to be more happy within than being that we have to be concerning ourselves of what we're looking at or how we're looking. Yes, it's good to be strong and healthy and all that. That's what I encourage. But it doesn't matter on, the type of car you're driving or the house you're living in and all these things. Live in a home that's clean. Live in a home that you have what you need. Be grateful for that, for a roof over our heads, for to be able to have a meal. That's what we need to start looking at. It's not necessary for us to have the world at our fingertips, which we do. But to be grateful for what we do have and enjoy it is really what matters in this second part of life.
Absolutely. And the comparisons need to stop. Someone told me once, well, how do I know if I'm successful if I don't compare myself? It's like success is inside of you, not on outside of you. And that they just could not agree with that at all. And can you imagine how unhappy you could be if you continually compared yourself to what someone else has and not stop to think that someone's looking at you saying, man, I wish I had what she has. Inner
You know,
peace, for one.
yeah. I remember a friend of mine asked me many years ago, saying to me, how do you think people perceive you? Like she always wondered how she was perceived. And she said to me, what do you think people perceive you as? And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. Personally, I don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
Once you know who you are, that's all that really matters.
Yes.
It's not being perceived at all. Everybody has a different opinion. I could be in a room of 500 people. I will get 500 different opinions of me.
Absolutely. And it's really none of our business what someone thinks about us. That's about them. Whatever they're thinking is about them. It's not about us. We know who we are.
And that's what we have to realize in our lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is start being mindful of who you are, the type of person you are. That's why we talk about things like volunteering. And here's the thing, and it's just like when you give, you don't need to give so that you can get people talking about you, or like how much, if you want to donate something, you don't need to make these things public. You don't need to go around. The only person that needs to be aware of what you do is you. It's nobody else. Just like I said, if I was in a room of 500 people, there'd be 500 different opinions of me. And it doesn't matter.
Right.
Who you are and what makes you feel good is that matters. How you can hold your head high and look at yourself in the mirror is what really matters. Are you doing things that you can be proud of, or are you doing things that you're going to be ashamed of? The only other thing that I always remind myself, and I say this to others that are out there, the only person that I do things also for, or try to do the right things, is for my kids, because I believe I'm the greatest teacher for my children. And when my children see that I've done the right things, where I don't hold a grudge, or I don't um, put somebody else down, or my door will always be open to anybody that needs help, or anything like that, because I want them to know what is the right than in the wrong.
Yes. And our kids are their eyes are on us from a very young age till right now, watching what their mom does. And
And
it's just
continues.
natural
Yes, and it's not right now, it's to the day you die.
till the day you die.
They'll
Yeah.
be watching you, and it will be a reminder of them, of when something happens in their life. It will be their reminder. And you don't think it's going to happen, but I'm going to tell you it will, because if a situation comes, they're going to think to themselves, what would my mom do in that case? Or my
Yes.
dad? And we're not being, it doesn't matter, mom or dad, but I'm saying it's taking the high road, doing the right thing, being that kind person, not that selfish person.
Exactly.
But not selfless. Like there's a difference between selfish and selfless. We have to learn that we have to do things for ourselves. We can't keep good going and doing for everybody else, and even if they are our kids, we
Right.
have to do things that we can look after ourselves. Spend that time and make yourself a good meal, or something that that you're going to have all your nourishment in it. Go out give yourself that time, that instead of doing something for somebody else, and take that 15-20 minute, half an hour walk. Those are the things that you need to do for yourself, because as the old story goes, if you don't put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
First. Yeah. And that's just self-love, Glenda. And our whole world changes when we learn to love ourselves, because our desires change, and the desire to give and be and do is there. And with the universal law of everything returning to you, you should always have it in the back of your mind that you want to do what is right and good. And you do know the difference.
So you just brought up another thing that just came to mind, which is huge. Because I suffered from this, and I'm sure you did too. Because knowing you, who you are, I'm sure you suffered through this as well as I did. It's the fact of receiving. I could never receive. I have a hard time taking. I'm a giver. I'm a giver. I don't take a lot. I have a hard time. Like somebody wants to do something nice. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's okay. I thank you. I appreciate it. But no, don't worry about it. Why can't we just say thank you and take it?
Yeah, whether it's a tangible item or a compliment, receive it with grace.
Right? How
Receive
many
it with
times is
grace.
there a compliment that's given to you and you go, oh yeah, I've had this forever.
Yeah, this rag. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I bought this years ago. Why can't we just turn around and say thank you? You see, because as the universe works it, people wonder why do I never get things? Somebody always gives you stuff. How come people are always giving you things? Because here's the thing. We live in a universe that reacts, it's a circle. Everything in life really is a circle. And when we give, it's wonderful, but we have to learn to take too for ourselves, for that circle to be complete. How does it all work and balance out, right? It has to work as a give and a take.
Yes,
That's why
absolutely. And another thing I want to tell whoever is watching is saying no is okay. Saying no is okay. That changed my life, learning to say no. Not in a mean way, but they will find you if you're that person that always says yes, and they will use you. And if that's not healthy for you, because then comes anger and resentment. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain. You don't have to say anything. Just no.
And if you're a salesperson,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you one other thing. No doesn't mean no, end of sentence, don't approach that person again. No can be no at the moment. No, not right now. Maybe later. It's all on, in regards to all of this, it's all on the relationship that you build. Being true to others, but let's start with the reality of it. It's starting to be true within ourselves. And that's what we don't do enough of, is just being true to us. So start being true to yourself by building this next part of your life for you. Finding things that you love, things that make you laugh. We don't laugh enough. Finding things that makes you excited. Spending time with people that add that vibration in you that you just feel like you're just on the cloud. If you're starting to get involved with somebody, or you're there and you have to think twice of, I don't really want to be there, because I remember I was like that at points in my life. I don't really want to see them, but I felt obligated.
Yes.
Let's be true to ourselves. We don't have to do things like, when we talk about even family situations, it's another whole side of the coin.
Ooh, you're not kidding. Ooh-wee. Yeah.
But we can do things that we can do, only put out what we need to put out on the family things. We have to also learn of the things that trigger us so that we can make it through that thing that's triggering us. And relationships sometimes do trigger us. And that's another whole show that we should talk about.
And that could be a couple hours.
But let's face it, okay? You can find ways so that you can give what you can give, but in the same hand, that you don't give everything that you become empty. And that's what this is all about. It's learning as we go through this next phase in our lives, this next session in our lives, is we need to keep ourselves more full than empty. And sometimes that seems really hard. But if we can start to find things of hobbies, of volunteer work, of maybe spending less and developing relationships more, of reaching out to those, and what turns into being that we end up making ourselves happy in the end of it all anyways. All those things help us to lead a healthier, happier life where we can actually do what really makes us happy. And if you're happy, then life doesn't feel like it's standing still or going backwards. It's moving forward. And that's what it's all about. So, Nicole, as
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
getting close to our end, what are your end thoughts on what we talked about today?
What I'm sitting here thinking is if I would have heard this conversation probably 10 years ago, it really wouldn't have resonated with me that much. And that's because I wasn't nurturing myself. That's because I wasn't taking care of myself. That's because I was looking out here and not looking inside of me. And what I've come to learn after some big ups and downs is taking care of yourself is not selfish, not at all. Because if you're not taking care of yourself and you're taking care of everybody else, you're being used, if you will. So I started taking care of myself, and it can be as simple as soaking in a bathtub, a cup of tea, an extra hour's sleep, a good meal. It doesn't have to be, oh, we've got to go to this spa and do this and this. It's just very simple things that you can get into a routine of doing. And when you pour into yourself before you pour into someone else, you're going to know that you're full. You're full and you can spare a little bit. And then you go back and refuel yourself. And that is the trick, is to understand that you are deserving, you are showing love to yourself. And when you do that, it's much easier to show love to others.
So it's time through this next part of life that we're all moving through into filling our own cups. Filling our own cups by keeping healthy, by thinking things through a little, worrying less what other people are thinking or saying about us. And most importantly, just doing what takes some stress off of you. No matter what it is, take it one day at a time if need be. And if you can't find any of the things or don't know where to even start, hey, that's what we're here for. Reach out. Today on Let's Get Real, it's something that we want everybody to learn. We want you to learn that thinking yourself through for the next state in life is really what the important thing is. You don't need to be feeling like you're getting older. I want you to start feeling like you matter more now than ever before in your life. That's really what it is. And you deserve it because you know what? You are enough. Thank you today for watching us. Please share this with anybody you know that needs to hear this. Share it. Give us some comments. What do you think? Do you do anything to look after yourself? Let us know. Comment below on the video and tell us, what do you do to give yourself a little bit of worth, love, and most importantly, to have great relationships that really fill your cup full. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.